basic. A physician might come to us and say, I've got some financial questions. I might need some help with managing my money, student loan debt, insurance needs, things like that. And in that time, we would often say, well, maybe a good partner would be Wells Fargo to help manage your money, or some asset managers that can help you out with your financial questions. We've since developed into a full financial planning shop where we do all the financial planning in-house. We now manage about $1.4 billion of physician money between 401ks and individual retirement accounts. And so the short story is we started off fairly basic, but we now kind of view ourselves as a one-stop shop, where people can come, sit down, and have the spectrum of their financial questions answered. We have 13 people in the office. This last year and a half has been kind of unique, as I'm sure all of you have seen. A lot of our meetings have been shifted to Zoom meetings or conference calls. And so primarily we used to do face-to-face meetings, but we've adapted so where we can be a little more customized to your needs and your schedule. Today we're going to just go over kind of a high overview of some of our services and things that we offer. Those who have a desire to learn a little bit more about the topics that we can talk about in depth, we have a podcast that we've launched over the last 2 years where we take various financial topics and we take 10 or 15 minutes and we can take a deeper dive into how that topic applies to a physician or someone in the medical community. So wherever you get your podcasts, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, you can find our podcast. If finance isn't your cup of tea, you may want a highly caffeinated beverage while you listen to the topics. You might find them dry if you don't love finance. Now, we try to spice them up and keep them entertaining and engaging. To kind of set the stage and explain a little bit about what we do, I've listed up here what we call our retirement equation. Now, when it comes to financial planning, there's certain aspects of the financial plan that tend to occupy everyone's attention. And to start with, let's look at the right side of this diagram. There's certain aspects that are what we consider out of your control as an investor. Things like market returns. We can't make the market go up. We can't make the market go down. As much as we want to yell at CNBC, unfortunately, we can't control the market. This was pretty evident, I guess, if we think back to the Trump-Hillary election. We had a lot of clients who called us in the weeks and months leading up to the election, said, I'm worried that if Trump gets elected, the market's going to drop. That was a general fear in the market amongst investors. A lot of those people would say, should I move my portfolio to cash? Is that a strategy I should look at? And often the conversations with our clients went something like this. We would explain that we had built out a plan so they didn't have to have knee-jerk reactions with every headline that popped up on the news. And so we explained that even if the market did drop, their portfolio should be constructed in a way that it shouldn't derail the financial plan. They should still be able to continue on to retirement and not lose everything. Some of those clients insisted that they still wanted to move to cash. So if you recall, the election happened and the market jumped. It kind of did the opposite of what some of these people's concerns were. We began receiving panicked phone calls from those same people saying, I moved to cash, the market jumped, what should I do now? Do I buy back all the same securities and investments at a higher price? If you recall, the market never really retreated to pre-election levels after that point. So it became difficult to say, how do we get back into the market? This is an example of how difficult it can be to time the market. As much as we want to be able to control the market as investors and make it go up and down as we desire, that can be a difficult task. The other circle on the right, policy regarding taxation, savings, and benefits. When we think of the tax landscape ahead of us, we can kind of get a little bit of sight down the pipeline of potential changes that are going to happen. Currently, with the Biden administration, there's some talk about changes to Roth conversions or capital gains taxes, maybe estate planning changes. Largely, these decisions that are made are somewhat out of our control, right? As an individual investor, we can't control that. I guess we have some control over who we elect into office, who ultimately makes these decisions, but as an individual investor, we can't control it. Things that we do have some control over might be things like employment earnings and duration. You can control how many shifts you pick up, or maybe what specialty you go into, how many years you work. Do you retire at 58, 65, 70? Those decisions are largely yours, and you'll have some control over ultimate earnings. Longevity, once again, you have some control over. How we take care of our bodies will determine how long we can work, I guess. But things we have total control over, things like spending, savings. Now, these ones, a lot of times, don't seem as fun, right? It's not nearly as fun to watch a budget and track how our spending is going. But these are things that we can control. Asset allocation and location. How you invest your money. Are you in stocks, bonds, real estate? Are your investments held inside of a brokerage account, Roth account, other tax-qualified accounts? It can make sense to be strategic about maybe where we hold certain asset classes inside certain types of accounts. And these are things that you do have control over. So when it comes to a financial plan, a lot of times it's easy to let your attention get sucked over to the things that we can't control. But the reality is, the determining factors in a financial plan are things like how much we spend, how much we save, how we invest.